All right, it's going live in 10 seconds. Oh, we're live now. Okay. Raw Topic is in the house today.
We're gonna get my basketballs here. Tell us something that makes you happy.
Perfect.
This man has been running from the camera. Okay. Do you play outside? Yes. Am I your cousin?
Stay tuned, you guys. I'm about to get some more footage. I'll be back at y'all. What's good, everybody? Today, you guys, we have the women from the Women's Resource Center here, and we also have Kathy back. You remember her from the book review of The Lion and the Narcissist. We are going to be talking about domestic violence today, you guys. So please chime in as much as you can. If you guys feel like you have any kind of advice or you've had an experience that you can share, this is the time to get your voice across. My name is Hamin Phillips.
And I'm Renee Beck Santiago, and I'm going to introduce everyone today at the round table. We're going to be having a pretty serious discussion today about domestic violence, and I'm going to introduce everyone specifically and individually, tell you a little bit about everyone who's sitting at the table today before we start discussing the issues at hand. If you have any questions or concerns or real life experiences with domestic violence, please chime in throughout the episode. Hamin will be checking messages and emails throughout so that we can hopefully answer some of those questions. Today, we're very lucky to have three special guests with us, and we do have representation here today from the Women's Resource Center. Women's Resource Center has two different places, one in Racine and one in Kansasville. And the Kansasville one is also called the Dover Healing House. I'm just going to say the number several times during this episode. The number to the Women's Resource Center is 633-3233. And they are here to help the Racine community with domestic violence. And we have two people here today from the Women's Resource Center. We have Tracy Lang, who's waving here. The camera's over there. We have Tracy Lang here from the Women's Resource Center, and she wears multiple hats at the shelter center, at the Women's Resource Center. She is the shelter manager, specifically on the West End. She has an educational degree. She's been at the Women's Resource Center for 3 years. She is the acting executive director right now at the Women's Resource Center. We're very lucky to have her here today. And she is the former program director. Many of you know in Racine the former Hand to Hand program. She's also the former director of that. And so we're happy to have you here today. Thank you, Tracy. She's going to tell us a little bit about what we can expect if we're victims of domestic violence in Racine. We also are very lucky to have Denise here today. Denise Steffenbill is here today from Women's Resource Center as well. She's been with the Women's Resource Center about 16 months. And prior to that, she did an internship at the Racine Friendship Clubhouse. She has an associate's degree in human resources and has a huge impact with the Racine community, and is a PTA president at Wadowitz, is involved in the Girl Scouts as a troop leader, and she is the case manager for some permanent housing opportunities in Racine, especially when you're a victim of domestic violence. And she works with chronic homelessness, and we're very blessed to have you both here today, so thank you so much. Both of the people here today from Women's Resource Center, they both also are involved with groups in the Racine community, particularly the Bethany Apartments, and those are transitional living places for victims of domestic violence, and they help with those groups as well. So we thank you for that. We also have Kathy returning today. Thank you, Kathy, for returning back to our show. She's been on our show in the past. She is the author of The Lion and the Narcissist, and she was previously on our show talking about narcissism and
Soulmates.
And soulmates. Yes, we were talking about soulmates, and we did talk about her book as well. She is a registered nurse. She has been a nursing educator for over 20 years. She is a victim of domestic violence, as well as I am myself. And again, the author of The Lion and the Narcissist. She will now be also doing life coaching. And she does have 2 websites, thelionandthenarcissist.com, and also My Daughter's Blessings, My Father's Will.com. Both of those sites are available and will be up and running for life coaching and available to help you with questions or concerns that you might have with domestic violence. So we have a lot of resources here for domestic violence, because one of our goals in Raw Topic is not to just produce information to you, but also to provide you with resources in the community so that you can use these resources to help you as well. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and so we're glad to discuss this a little bit early.
Yes, that sounds very good. So how do we want to start this topic here?
I think what we probably should do is talk a little bit about, Kathy and I have a strong passion for domestic violence because we were both victims of domestic violence, and we both have our own stories where we were both harmed, and I was almost killed and strangled. And so we have a passion for helping women out of these situations, and making a voice so that they don't end up dead. So we looked a little bit at the domestic violence homicide report in Wisconsin alone in the past 7 years. In Wisconsin alone, 738 people have died from domestic violence homicide. 738 people in 7 years. That's over 100 per year, even in Wisconsin.
Now you said people, you mean like women or?
People in general, man, women. We were talking a little bit before the show that you've been seeing an increase of even men that have been victims of domestic violence, as well as gay and lesbian couples with domestic violence.
So just to get it straight, men can also be victims of domestic violence?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Okay. I'm just,
Well, yeah,
I'm sure a lot of viewers didn't really expect that men are also victims of domestic violence. So
For
I just
sure.
want to make sure that they know that there's help for that as well.
For
Obviously,
sure.
children, like we don't want to forget that children
Exactly,
are very
children,
frequently
men and women actually.
And even
Victims.
probably like teenage relationships, where in teenage
That's one of our
Especially.
programs we've started.
Is it? Okay, so yeah, let's get into asking some questions and talking a little bit about this. So I think one of our first things that we want to talk about at the round table is the cycle of domestic violence. So let's just get into a discussion about some things that can happen and some of all of our concerns about it. So there are power and control wheels that we kind of brought up prior to the show, where people are using threats and coercion and what have you guys been seeing with that? Have you guys any experience with that, different like threatening and behaviors?
Well, I think like the threatening, at least in my situation, I'm guessing for yours, and definitely in the research and what my book focuses more on narcissistic abuse, because my abuser was suffered from narcissism and dark triad traits. But when you're talking about these manipulative personalities, these abusive personalities, the threats are not at the forefront of abuse, which is often why people will ask the question, well, why did you stay in this abusive relationship? And that is very demeaning to ask victims or survivors
Yeah, they
of
like
abuse.
put the blame on you
Right.
almost.
Yeah,
instead of
exactly.
the
To say-
point of being abused.
Right, like why would you stay in that? In fact, I had a couple friends, some relatives say, well, you're highly educated, you're beautiful, you're this. Why would you stay in that? Well,
yeah.
Or why would you choose? We were talking about that earlier. Why would you making you feel like you're like you're even more victimized? Well, why would you even
Right.
choose that partner to begin with?
right.
Yeah, and
But-
they just ask so many irrelevant questions instead of treating you like the victim.
Right. Well, one of the very early signs of an abusive relationship is actually the opposite. It's an idealization phase, or what is termed as a love bombing phase. So any relationship where there is this excessive love bombing, this A lot of gift giving, a lot of I love you, you're the woman of my dreams, which will become I can't live without you.
So isn't that
You're
gaslighting too, though?
Gaslighting is very different.
Okay.
We can talk about gaslighting, but love bombing is just like you're hit with this bomb of love, like I love you. And the pace of that relationship is much faster than a healthy relationship. The I love yous happen very, very early on. The wanting to move in together happens very, very
Red
early
flags?
on. Yes, there
Right?
should be red flags, which is actually, I wrote my book in terms of a predatory lion, and if you think about it, any predator wants to snare its prey very early. Wants to get its claw in its prey very early,
Right at the
so it doesn't
beginning.
get it away.
Wow. So it kind of treats
Right.
the man or the
Right.
whoever would treat him like almost a prey, like
yeah.
predator, like
Right.
yeah.
So, you'd think that it would be threatening. Well, of course, if we saw threatening, if we saw negative behaviors right away, yeah, we'd probably run for the hills. But no, it does. An abusive person usually doesn't come in that way. They come in very loving, very charming. They're very charming. And this is where the cycle of abuse starts. And it actually is also physiological. And a lot of these manipulators are aware of the physiologically addictive process of these relationships, which actually is equal to that of heroin abuse, because love and the hormones that are released by the love and affection is dopamine, which is the same hormone that our body releases, or that cocaine releases. So
So you get addicted to it. It gets in a
right.
cycle of addiction, like,
Right.
oh, they hurt me, and now they're loving me so
Right.
much, I want to just feel that love. So it's like a cycle.
Right. So when you have this high dopamine release or this pleasure release in this love bombing cycle, followed by this low cortisol negative release of negative hormones during this silent treatment or disappearing phase, or this all the negative things which we haven't even gotten, these highs and lows, you become addicted to this abusive, manipulative person, like a person gets addicted to heroin. I've read a couple articles that say it is 10 times more difficult to quit a manipulative relationship than it is to quit heroin because of the trauma bonding. They've turned that a trauma bond.
Do you see people like coming and then going back to their abuser, and then coming back and then going back to their abuser,
Statistically,
and then coming
it
back
takes about 7 times
before
is
they
the average.
fully leave?
before they can fully leave.
So at Women's Resource Center, let's say you're a victim and you come, and then you go back to your abuser. Can you come back to the Women's Resource Center later? So do you see
Open
people,
arms.
almost like recidivism with crimes, you're seeing the victim come back and back. So
And we discuss that with them from even when they're making that choice to go back to their abuser, that this might not be your opportunity, that you're just tasting the opportunity of what it would be like to leave, and next time you'll have better chances of it sticking. And every time you have a better chance of it. You're going
leaving.
to actually leave.
to actually leave. So it's usually like 7 times
The average is leaving 7 times before
before they actually leave.
Changes.
Or they could also end up dead
Right.
during that
There's
process.
a lot of people that are very successful and they've had theirs 7 times already at home before we know them, and they come to us for their first time, and it sticks.
Right.
There's people who leave relationships for a very long time, but then find another relationship that's similar
Because that's what
because
like
they
they're
haven't
used
relearned
to. Yeah.
healthy behaviors.
Right, right. So there's like a process with developing themselves again, so they don't pick that same type of partner, because that might be all they know. Some of these people that have been domestically abused have been in marriages for 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, I'm done with this, and then they get a
It
divorce,
could still
and then
even be just a child who's grown
Yeah.
up thinking this is what a healthy relationship looks like.
Right.
And changes the same poor pattern of an unhealthy relationship because they're not aware of what a healthy relationship dynamic is.
Well, that's one piece. That's a big piece. And that's why there's that almost genetic link. If you come from an abusive childhood, you tend to be attracted to
Bad boys.
bad boys or bad relationships because you've never had that modeled. but also, and I hesitate, but this has kind of become my mantra in my book, there also is a beautiful part in coming out of abusive relationships if you turn it into something positive, and that is your abuser will mirror your the best parts of you, and will point you towards your childhood wounds, your deepest inner wounds.
Your abuser will do that
Yes.
as a form to
and at least
manipulate you.
right. And at least, and I was domestically abused, but once. My abuser hit me once, and I was done.
Right.
But the
so
level,
you're the
the
lucky
degree,
one, and you're smart one to leave.
but I wouldn't call myself smart at all, because the degree of narcissistic abuse that I took over 5 years was extremely destructive. I mean, I don't wish it on anybody. It was horrible. But what broke me healed me. And I know it's very, very hard for people to look at that, but what it does is it shows you the part of yourself that needs to be healed, which a lot of times is very similar in victims. It's a lack of boundaries. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're afraid to set boundaries for whatever reasons. Perhaps in your childhood, your parents crossed your boundaries. Let's say for those family or those people whose parents were abusive, physically abusive. Well, children that are physically abused or sexually abused, those boundaries are crossed daily. Parents who check their kids' phones, who check their kids' journals, who walk in the bedroom door without knocking, those boundaries are crossed. Mm-hmm. Parents who demand that you answer my call now, those people never learn what it is to have healthy boundaries. Mm-hmm. So one thing that we have, what we put in common in those relationships is we have no idea how to respect boundaries, that it's okay that I don't call you back or answer the phone right now. I don't have to answer your phone right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm in the bathroom,
Yeah.
for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
But when we grow up in these environments, we feel, oh my God, I have to answer the phone right now, or what's gonna happen? He's gonna be mad at me.
Yeah.
We can't have
You
that.
probably see that a lot.
Right.
Like-
People coming in, like, even with social media, you know,
People
their
act
partner might message them,
Yeah.
you know, their boyfriend
People
or their
act like
girlfriend
you're
might
tied to your
message them.
phone
Yeah.
24/7.
Why aren't you answering? It's like you're at work. You can't answer, you
You
know.
don't need an excuse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't need
Why?
it. You can say
You
I
don't
don't
have to
feel
be in the
like
bathroom,
it.
and you don't have to be
Right.
at
Yeah,
work.
you can say I don't feel like it. You know,
So
I mean,
boundaries is a huge inner piece that you need to heal. Self-love. A lot of times we love the abuser so much, but we don't love ourselves. If we truly loved ourselves, we would never allow that kind of abuse. We would never allow cheating. We would never allow lying. We would never allow physical abuse. But we allow the abuser to do this to us. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of lack of self-love. There's complete lack of self-respect.
I mean, I've seen
So-
some very powerful people
Absolutely.
still become victims of domestic
Yes,
violence.
absolutely.
Some very powerful people. They can go, you know, I mean, I was one of them.
Right.
I can go out into my career arena and perform excellent at my job, and then behind the scenes here I was getting strangled and locked in a closet, you know. So I think that, like we talked about earlier before the show, is you know, you're probably starting to see a wide variety also even at Women's Resource Center of anyone, race, gender, economic status. I mean, obviously we know just statistically people that are poor are at a greater rate of domestic violence because they have no resources.
Sure.
You know, you can't just leave if you don't have the money.
Young, disabled, and mental health.
Are the ones the most victimized.
Definitely a lot. We're seeing a lot more.
So can you just say that again? So the young,
Disabled,
the disabled,
and mental health issues.
and the mental health issues, right? So someone with a mental health issue, their partner might prey on them. You know, oh, you're on psych meds, or oh, you're young, or you know. So
And when we know for sure you're crazy.
Yes.
It's just that we're not making you crazy. You already are crazy.
Right, and that's why you're thinking this is wrong, what I'm doing to you. Is there what I wanted to ask too with Women's Resource Center here, are you seeing, do you guys see trends of different types of abuse? Does that make sense? Like,
Right.
like all of a sudden you're seeing,
Sexual abuse
on the rise, or all of a sudden, you're noticing there's more victims that are, getting their phones taken away more, or their cars, or their, are you seeing any trends that you're like, oh, this
No,
is like,
not really.
is it always different stuff every day?
It is.
Okay, so
It's a wide variety.
a wide
I
variety.
think you see trends like developmentally. Like I worked in
Yeah.
peds for years, and there was obviously broken bones, on the infant unit,
Oh, right.
and cigarette burns,
Yeah.
and we had developmentally, because those kids, it was the grabbing by the arm.
Yeah.
You see like the femur and the large bone breaks.
Things
between
like
0
that.
to 1, and
Yeah, or
you know,
patient or
yeah.
parents grabbing
so I
them
think
or
it's like
whatever.
more developmental.
So I actually had a question for Tracy and Denise. Why is it, do you think men, and right now I'm talking about men abusers, why do you think men choose to abuse women in a relationship? What do you think that's all about?
That's a good question. Like,
know,
why do you think
why
men
does
do
All
it?
abuse
Yeah.
is all power and control. Yeah, so
It's about power and control.
So
all
it's
abuse is
usually a
power and
controlling
control.
man
Yes.
will want this kind of control.
But you see powerful men that have great power. I'm not even going to use Trump, but I'm going to go there. Who even, are more abusive in the things they say and do.
yes,
The
it's to
sometimes even
obtain
the guys of power can
or
do that.
control over someone else. To
Well-
obtain their own power within, but to obtain power and control over someone else.
It's just like beauty in a woman. A woman could be beautiful and she has
Still get
no self-esteem.
Yeah, still be a victim.
Right.
And they could be gorgeous.
Men do statistically have a higher rate of narcissism, have a higher rate of power and control. I don't know if it's a testosterone thing. I don't know if it's a child rearing thing. Narcissistic mothers, their daughters will grow up codependent. Their sons will grow up narcissistic. The science cannot answer.
So it could
why
be
that
genetically
is.
related too.
I cannot answer what that is.
Do you see that too?
So,
like, are you more
I would hate
likely?
to believe that it's genetic.
I wonder though, if your dad's if
But
your
wait a
dad's an
minute.
abuser, are you more likely to be an abuser? I would
It
say
could just
probably
be
yeah.
like a physical ability. Like a boy is gonna very quickly learn he could physically protect himself in an abusive home, or a girl.
So is it-
I don't know. There's
Is
no
it
answer
fair
to
to
that, but-
say that a narcissist is most likely an abuser? Is that always the case? Can you be a narcissist and not a
And
woman
not
abuser?
physically abused, I wonder?
It's
I
very
mean-
no.
So can we fairly say
Can
that
you be an
can't-
abuser and not be a narcissist?
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
angle that we see it more often.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
definitely.
Not every
Yeah.
abuser
But it's
is
hard
a
to put it all the way
narcissist.
around.
Not every
Right.
abuser is a narcissist.
Right.
So
But yeah,
And there's different kinds of abuse also. There's
emotional.
physical abuse. There's
Financial.
that's what I'm gonna get into,
Justice.
that wheel, right,
And there's something which is pivotal, and I think in the United States we really have to campaign, and you guys are in a great, political place in your careers to make this happen. In the UK, they've just made it a criminal offense, that coercive abuse. Oh, I can talk again. I just had therapy on my face, so I can talk evenly. But coercive abuse is a criminal offense, and coercive abuse is anything that is a form of humiliation, intimidation, financial control.
wait, those are against the law?
In the UK.
In
They
the
have
UK.
just made it a form of criminal. It's a criminal offense. It is not in the United States, but it needs to be, because 95%
It does need to
of
be.
coercive abuse does become physical.
Right,
95% of the time.
I would think that would be true, because before I actually got strangled,
Yes.
he was doing things like
Right.
taking my phone,
Yep.
driving me to work, making
Yep.
sure I couldn't drive my own car to work,
Yep. It's about, because it's
taking
about
control over money, economical abuse, things like that.
I've heard of some guys
So-
even taking like their partner's IDs and driver's
Oh,
license.
wow.
Yeah,
Walking
things
into
like
the
that.
bank
So
with
they
them, doing all
they
the
can't go to the
talking.
bank. They
Right.
can't go to the ATM. They
Weird.
can't.
And our justice system doesn't look at coercive control. They look at the act, like a battery or this. But this is huge. Coercive control is a huge stalking. I mean, we are on the cusp of looking at electronics, GPSs, telephones, that whole electronic monitor tracking of people as a form of abuse, because it is a form of abuse.
Yeah.
Because
Stalking too, yeah.
My
Form of stalking.
Yeah, my-
Slash abuse.
abuser GPSed me and ended up
Which,
physically assaulting me.
Yeah.
I mean, because that is stalking, right?
And
They
I don't know if
where
any of
are
you
every
have ever
minute.
heard, you might not have known, but there's something, you guys know of a lethality scale or some form of a lethality scale?
No.
I didn't even realize it.
I
Because,
mean, I do to a certain extent, but not.
so in
excessive.
a lethality scale, I didn't even realize it, but I went back, something, you're so stressed during all this time, but a lethality scale was developed by Dr. I think Jacqueline Campbell, and I only remember because one of the policemen's name was Campbell. But it's an 11 questions tool that first responders use
Yeah,
and
it's the
ask
lap.
you questions. Is it
Response.
lap?
Oh, right.
Yes, and
So
we
if
have it
they
in the
come to
city of
your
Racine.
house,
And they will ask you these questions, and what it does is determine your risk for reassault or homicide. And one of those questions, and I remember just being dumbfounded that the policeman told me I was at very high risk for being reassaulted and for homicide, and it's just
and I
I
think
was
yeah,
so
you-
confused, and
yeah,
but it was because he was very controlling of my day-to-day activities.
yeah, those
And-
day-to-day
yeah.
things.
He wanted to know where I was every
Yeah.
day, every minute. He had GPS my car. And
It's too
if
much.
your partner is jealous, if your partner accuses you of having an affair, that automatically puts you at a high risk for reassault. There's something, the nature of jealousy, that puts you at high risk.
That's like
Have
a
you
crime
seen
of
that?
passion,
Well,
Yeah,
right?
have you
there's
seen
even
that
the
stuff?
strangest questions like that originally seemed strange to me as far as do they have a job? If the answer is no, the score goes up higher. That
if the offender
Because,
doesn't have a job.
because if they don't have a job, all they have
They
to
feel
do
like-
all day is stalk you,
Or
right?
know
They don't
what
got-
they're doing, know where
Yeah.
you're at,
Yeah,
right?
because they don't have
the
anything
answer
else to
is
do
yes.
to keep them busy.
What shift do they work?
Oh.
Because even based on the shift,
Wow.
do they have a
know
flexible
that one.
schedule?
So like if they work from
Yeah.
home, like mine worked from home from his computer,
Wow.
he never left my house.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So, and I remember my ex had our Apple phones mirrored.
Oh.
And I was shocked when I got my phone back from the police. They had it, of course, they took the
Oh,
phone.
you didn't know it was mirrored?
I didn't know it was mirrored.
You
So
don't
they
have
took.
no clue. You're
I
like,
don't even know what that means.
So I didn't know
That means
this
he
either.
can, everything
So
that happens, every text she gets, every
So,
call, he will get.
he had the phone
He mirrors it.
mirrored. I was so creeped out. I remember getting the phone back from the police, and I had both of the phones on the counter. They were both mine, okay? But he had in his possession one of the phones. And my Apple phone was ringing, and so was the other phone.
oh.
So then I was freaking out, so I started texting my daughter. She texts me back. It comes up on the other phone. Every single move I made was mirrored. You can mirror an Apple
This
phone.
is actually
Almost like a
it's
GPS on your phone.
also known as called cloning.
Yes. So he somehow cloned my cell phone.
Yeah.
I was like, how does he know my every move? How does he
That's
know if I'm
right.
driving
And it
the
didn't go in
subway?
reverse. Like somebody could still
This-
contact you if you weren't.
I
doing
wouldn't
it.
know. He would
Wow.
only mirror mine.
Well, that puts you at very
And I
high
was at a
risk
huge
for-
risk, and I almost
That
died.
is
on
a
the
huge
I almost died.
stalking behavior.
Right.
Yes.
When
and,
you go as far as cloning someone's phone,
Right.
Yes.
you are a stalker.
And
Yeah,
I,
and
you know,
stalking
and
will-
I almost died, as everyone knows. I was strangled and I was almost killed. I saw angels. I was at the hospital. And not everyone knows that. This is one of the reasons why it took us so long to do this domestic violence episode, because I wasn't prepared to talk about it for a long time. And now I want to use my story to help other people, as you do too, and as a lot of your victims probably may get to that point,
Which-
hopefully.
Which, by the way, I want to mention, your case has been going on for like 2 years and it's still going.
Well,
And
that's
this is-
the bigamy part of it.
Okay.
And there's a jury trial in November, right? Because I did find out he was also married to someone else while he was married to me.
Oh my goodness.
So he was charged with bigamy also. But the actual strangulation part, there was some miscommunication in the court system, and he somehow got sentenced to that part without me being there to make a
Right.
victim witness impact statement.
Right.
So there's like these kind of things that you probably hear about all the time with the communication stuff in the court system. And you know, I happen to have excellent police officers that responded with my situation and excellent interaction. So I was lucky, but I did have a lot of people reaching out to me since we decided to do this domestic violence episode. I think we talked about it earlier, and I talked a little bit to you guys about it. I have someone who reached out to me even this morning, and she was a victim of domestic violence. And when the police came to the house, they asked her to leave her own house. So now you're a victim. You just get victimized and you got to leave your own house. This is why victims are scared to call the police. You know, if I'm just strangled or hit or beat up, now I got to leave my house on top of everything?
Right.
Yes, and sometimes your
You know what
kids
I'm
in the
saying?
house
Right.
with your abuser.
Right. And now I got to leave my kids with my husband or my wife or whatever, and with the person who just beat me. You know, but you know, in the defense of law enforcement, sometimes they probably, you know, don't know the whole mix. They weren't there. They're trying to determine who's telling the truth. But in this particular situation, it was pretty cut and dry, you know, and she was asked to leave. So are people
A really
saying,
good abuser, though, will have everything in their name or only in their victim's name, so that, you know, one or the other.
Interesting.
So you're saying another red flag could be a husband or a wife keeping everything in their name.
Oh, sure.
This house is in my name.
Or they have video cameras.
These cars are in my name.
Surveillance
This
cameras.
These surveillances
lease is
are
in my name.
Yeah.
This
That's a big
lease
one.
is in my name.
Yeah,
So guess what?
surveillance,
This
yeah.
is my collateral, because if you act up,
Yeah.
you're the one leaving. Or if I act up, you're the one leaving.
And the gaslighting, what we talked about, like the first stages, like the love bombing, you know, that it's more positive, and then it will progress into more negative warning signs, where they will become very possessive of you, because you are not a person to these people. You are an object
Possession.
for
of
them.
property.
You're
Yeah.
a possession.
You are
You're
an
their
object.
property.
And it's a form of obsession.
Yeah, they are very obsessive.
Exactly.
You are
You gotta look out
obsessive.
for
From
obsessed
them,
partner.
yeah.
Yes.
That for them to extract, I'm so proud that I can talk. I wasn't able to talk at the last one. That they can extract whatever they need from you, whether it's sex, whether it's attention, whether it's adoration, whether it's money. That's all you are.
Yeah, because that's
So
a form
you-
of abuse too, right? You can't. I mean, what if your wife doesn't want to have sex? I mean,
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's a whole nother.
you can't say
Episode,
no. Yeah, you
because
can't say
you, like-
no. You can't say
Right.
no. And that's another red
What-
flag
I mean-
too. No is to an abuser or a manipulative personality, a psychopath, a narcopath, a narcissist, a psychopath, sociopath. No to a healthy person is an end of a discussion. No to any of these people is a negotiating piece.
A challenge.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
right?
It's a challenge.
Right?
Yeah,
No
I
is like,
mean-
we're done. No to this people is a negotiating piece. It doesn't end there.
Yeah. If I do this or I stop doing
Yes.
this,
No,
then we're
it's-
gonna be fine, right?
No.
Or I love you. Please just give me
They
a
don't
second
hear
chance.
no.
What's
Right.
the craziest thing you've ever heard of? Like, just give us some examples. Like, what do people say they've been manipulated with, or you know, what are some things
The
you hear?
saddest ones are probably when they're manipulated with their own children.
Oh, that is
Oh,
That's the
yeah,
saddest.
yeah. So especially the guys or the women, you know, they're the abuser, right? And then they do the abuse, and then all of a sudden, like,
They have
if you report this, you're not going to see your kid.
right.
Do you hear that?
Or if you leave me, you're not taking my kid.
Yeah.
Because that's my kid too.
Right, right. Do you see men or women that have more money manipulating the other partner with less money? Do you see more abuse that way?
Financial abuse is a real.
Well, yeah, because a woman feels like she can't provide for her kids or herself if she was to leave.
Right.
Especially if she's a stay-at-home mom and doesn't have a job. She's really afraid to be out there on her own with no
Right, because
money.
That's another
what's
whole
she
level
supposed to
of-
do? You know, I mean,
They stay normally
They
because
stay-
of the financial.
yeah, they're like, I can't go nowhere. I have no money to go anywhere. I'm just gonna have to let this guy beat my. because, or whatever, like just
Well,
to keep
it's
it
not
raw.
a level of abuse as far as familial abuse or reproductive abuse, and we'll keep it this way.
Yeah.
So now there's going to be more kids and more kids and more kids because.
Oh, because then the ante goes up too, and the more things that are involved, right? That it gets
Plus,
harder.
It would be harder for her to leave financially, or to reestablish financially, and that's tied into because now there's more kids to take care of.
Right. Do you take families at the Women's Resource Center?
Yes.
If a woman is abused, or a man, and they've been able to finally come to terms to leave their abuser, can the whole family show up at Women's Resource? What if you're to capacity, for example? Has that ever happened?
We're at capacity often, yes.
And what do you do? Like, let's say I show up, I have my family, I was just hit, I was just strangled, I have nowhere to go, like someone who messaged me today. Can she grab her kids out of that home and show up at Women's Resource?
Well, legally she has to be able to grab her kids out of that home, otherwise she's opening up the door for a lot more
For
problems.
the legal part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
But yes, calling our hotline number and getting in touch with us. If we are at capacity, we are giving them other resources that can be helpful. If it's the middle of the night, we're having them come in and at least sit with us in our advocate office and give us their story and help them make those phone calls.
So that how often are you at capacity? Is it pretty rare or
It's very frequent.
very frequently? Would you say Racine has a high rate of domestic violence?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
comparatively, I don't know.
Right.
I don't live somewhere else
Right.
to know that, and I don't work anywhere else. But I know that we have what I feel is a high rate. Yes.
Is there always people there? Always people
Yes.
coming in?
Yes.
Always abuse going on?
Yes.
Is there ever a time where you don't have anyone there?
No.
Okay. What other resources are available if you're to capacity? And are there other resources in Racine besides Women Resource Center? I've heard excellent things that you all have done for people. I mean, just in general. But are there other resources? Like if you can't help them, where do you tell them to go?
Well, we first would resort to having them reach out to other domestic violence shelters that aren't in Racine County.
Okay.
Kenosha has, Milwaukee has, Waukesha has. So try
Yeah,
other
Waukesha.
domestic.
Waukesha has the Women's Center,
Yes.
which is excellent.
Okay.
Milwaukee has the Sojourner House.
Yes.
And I don't know if you call just the national domestic violence number.
Or
if they
211.
Or 211.
If they
okay.
would be able to link you to any other resources at all.
So then if we cannot find another domestic violence shelter, we start working towards some of the other homeless shelters. And there are some homeless shelters that are specifically women and children that aren't necessarily domestic violence related, but don't house men. And then there's the homeless that we stay in contact with them. They can stay in contact with us for other services, be it group sessions, counseling, holistic healing, some of our other services until we can get them in.
That's great. So I didn't even know that there were groups available. Can anyone, I'm a victim of domestic violence.
Please.
Can myself or anyone or Kathy or I come to those groups?
Yes.
Okay. How many people are typically in a group in a given day?
We hold them regardless, and sometimes it's full house, depends on the topic. Kind of like with your shows that, depending on the topic, you have more people.
Right.
to be
Exactly.
there.
Depending on what you're talking about that day. Right. Exactly.
I know for myself, because like you, I was a victim of a crime.
Right.
And I did share this with you, that I found through the Department of Justice this excellent program called the Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Right.
That took over completely the restitution hearing with my abuser in court because I didn't press charges, the state pressed charges, and the DA's office is so busy, and it felt like a lot of things were falling through the cracks, especially with this baloney like first time offenders and plea deal baloney, which is extremely frustrating. And like Renee's, mine has been in court for almost a year.
Yours has been in almost a year.
Almost a
Yeah,
year,
been 2
and
years
you're just
almost.
not allowed to heal. I've probably incurred almost $33,000 in bills from my severe injuries while you have this manipulator manipulating the system. It's the same way they manipulated the relationship.
Right,
Gaslighting,
so now they're
gaslighting
Yeah.
and scheming,
So,
and
right.
it's just disgusting.
So you're the victim, and then
Right.
all of a sudden
And
we
you're
get
just walking,
re-victimized over and over and over
it's
again.
just disgusting.
Yeah.
But I found through the Department of Justice this wonderful program, and they just kind of,
Can you
Take
pull
everything.
that up a little bit on the
I'm
camera?
gonna
I don't know if they
take
can see that, but
and they've been just
the
wonderful.
crime victims compensation. Do you have any clients that are using this resource, and what is your?
Probably. I don't work our
Awesome.
legal injustice right now,
Okay.
so our.
Have you seen that, Denise, at all?
Oh my
But I know
God,
I've
you guys
been
can
running
take this.
into
I brought
a
you an
lot.
application
Oh yes, I
for
need
you.
one. Sure.
And
yes.
take it because they've been a blessing.
I think they gave me the So I'm definitely gonna contact them too.
Renee, let me take a moment for questions real quick. Nicole Sutton had a question. She said, "Are there support
Angela.
groups?" She said, "Are there support groups they can attend if you do not live in the domestic violence shelter? And where are they located?"
Right, that's an excellent question. Right, so can we attend if we don't live in the shelter, and where are these groups located? Excellent question. We definitely want to know, where are they located?
At both of our shelters.
Okay.
So out in Kansasville and in Racine.
Okay,
So I know on Mondays for sure there's a group at 4 o'clock.
Mondays at 4, okay.
I
The link.
don't know.
Can we type in the link?
Yeah, maybe we could put the
We'll
link
have to
on. Is
do
there
it
a link
after
with
the
the group classes at all anywhere?
We
Okay.
have it hung up in the shelter, but
You
then they
do?
talk to all of their outreach clients. They let them know when they can come for groups.
Okay. So
But
is
anyone
there a
who
way you
calls,
could
we
reach
get
it?
that
Or
information.
give
Just
it to
have
me
them
and I
call
could,
us.
okay. So again, I'll share that number one more time. It's 262-633-3233, 633-3233. They can give you a more specific list of the groups that are and where they are and when they are in Racine. Hamin, I have a question for you in regards to the male perspective, okay?
Great.
So I have two questions, okay?
I
One
can only
is
answer one.
one at a time, okay? One at a time. Have you seen any of your male friends or have you experienced yourself any domestic violence? Do you have any buddies that are guys that are like, this girl is abusing me? Or have you yourself have been a victim of throughout your life of any
I
domestic
was
violence?
in a relationship that I didn't know was abuse at the time, but she would scratch me a lot. I got a lot of scratches.
I noticed. So you have some scar
Yeah,
marks.
I got scar marks. Her thing was just scratching me when she was mad. And
Okay, he's got scars.
that's domestic abuse.
Oh my God, that's really deep.
But at the time, to me, it was like, okay, this girl is just, this is her way of just, acting out, whatever.
Was there anything else related to it besides was this when she didn't get her way? Was this
Right.
an attempt to get her way?
Exactly. That's a good question.
I don't know. It was so long ago. It's kind of hard to dig back. I really don't want to dig into it.
But you just remember.
But maybe. I mean, maybe. I guess it's just what you were saying just reminds me that I actually was being abused. I just didn't realize it. So I think a lot of men can be abused and not know that it is the abuse because they're a man. They're like, I can't be abused by a woman. I'm a man.
Yeah.
So you kind of brush it off.
Or you don't want to tell nobody because you're embarrassed.
I mean, how
I'm
many-
a dude,
Yeah.
I don't want to. How could a girl beat me up or something, right?
It's very underreported.
Yeah, it's underreported, I'm sure.
I mean, we watch the tabloids and we watch the Jersey Shore or whatever.
The Jersey
And Ron is getting his butt kicked by his girlfriend.
Ron, yeah.
Getting ran over by a
That's
car.
domestic abuse, serious domestic abuse. He keeps getting hit
Yeah,
and
she
ran
hit him by
over.
a car. He comes with a black guy the next day to the wedding.
Yeah.
And he's getting abused, but he's ashamed to tell Paulie D and his friend Vinny And Mike, he's
Because
afraid to
they're
tell
like,
them.
bro, like, how could you be getting beat by this girl,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of
So,
guys that probably
a
don't
lot
want
of
to hit back,
guys
too.
are-
They're like,
yeah.
I'm not hitting
Well,
back.
Yeah, a lot of guys
domestic
are embarrassed
violence. I mean,
about it.
all of the abuse falls under domestic violence. So
Mm-hmm.
it's calling him stupid, telling him he's a poor provider, telling him he's a poor parent, I mean, that's all abuse. It's cutting people's down confidence, self-esteem.
Right, it's
Um,
emotional.
Whether it's
abuse.
woman on woman, man
Controlling
on
the
woman, whatever.
finances.
Yeah.
I mean, females are very capable of also perpetrating in that way, even if they never physically abuse them.
Right, because you make a person feel unworthy. And
Independent.
that is destructive to your, to a person psychologically and then spiritually, and that's like the ultimate break. That's terrible. I think that was the worst part of it towards the end for me, was that just spiritual breakdown.
Right.
It's like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that parable of the frog, the boiling frog. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a great way to tell it, how you don't realize you're being abused. That if you took a frog and you threw it in boiling water, it would jump out. But if you take a frog and put it in cold water and you slowly increase the temperature, it wouldn't know and it would die. It would stay and it would die. You would boil it to death. And that's how that kind of emotional abuse. It is very calculated, very methodical, very incremental kind of abuse. It's just disgusting.
A gradual.
Very
A gradual
incremental,
way.
very calculated.
Exactly.
Like
And
guys
it
can start
starts the day
slowly
they meet
abusing,
you.
and then before
Yes.
you know it, you're in the abuse.
Well,
Oh, it
yeah, because
starts
they
the
could be
day
like,
they
oh,
meet
well, she tolerated this, so let me go up the,
Well,
let me
yeah.
up the ante
I'm
a
sure
little
they
bit,
test it.
right?
Didn't tolerate
Oh,
it.
they
Oh,
started
right.
the day they
Didn't
meet
tolerate
you.
it.
Yeah.
So now
Oh,
I
sure.
have to definitely up the ante.
Exactly.
Well, that's why a lot of women, when a guy first put his hands on you,
Exactly.
that's when you really should know to just leave that man alone, because he's
Leave
not
him
gonna
alone.
stop. The
Right.
first time he slaps
That's
you,
it.
the
First
first
time
time he
anyone
pushes
just
you,
but
go
then
for the
gaslighting.
line and
And
anyway.
that's coming from a man.
But then
You
that's
hear this? Like,
gaslighting.
that's-
This is a perfect example
That's
of
like-
gaslighting. This is where the confusion comes in. This is the worst part of abuse. This is where they will try to confuse your head, and it becomes your fault,
Yeah.
and you're so confused.
Yeah.
And try
That
to
didn't
change
happen.
that didn't happen.
Or it didn't happen that way.
Oh,
Right.
you really misunderstood that.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not the way it happened.
Or that's not the way I meant it.
right.
You know,
and pretty much
I just
you're
pushed you a
questioning.
little bit. I didn't really mean it that
And
way.
they are persistent on changing your reality.
So Nicole had a question. She said, "Where do men go who are being
That's a great
abused?"
question.
Women's Resource Center is inclusive. Men and women
So-
are allowed to come to our shelter.
So a
Right.
man or a woman can show up
So
at
just to
Women's
get let the
Resource.
viewers know that it's not just women who can go to the Women's Resource Center. That this center is open to men as well.
And most of them are open to men and women that I've read about as far as resource centers.
You know, there's a big push right now that I was recently invited to a conference to talk about how did we go through that process of including men in our shelter. And I said, I'm flattered by that invitation, but there's nothing to talk about. We're just like, we're open to men and women.
Right.
We didn't go through a process to get there.
Yeah.
People are people, and if you're abused, please come find us.
Yeah, and you said that overall, Women's Resource Center in general has about 20 employees. How many are women and how many are men?
I would have to say 19 are women and 1 is male.
So that's even interesting. Do men
Currently.
have a less of a focus to be involved in domestic abuse? Like, why
I get
would
very angry when I hear these stories. So I feel like a lot of men who are normal men, they really don't like hearing a story about a woman being beaten by a man. I mean, I don't really know any of my friends or anything that could not be mad about this situation. So I feel like any man who's a normal man, he's a good man. He's gonna be very angry and most times want to get revenge for that woman in some
Revenge.
form.
I think that's true, but why do we see less men working in the field?
I don't know, because I think
You know-
the Women's Center in Waukesha actually has a program, and they ask for volunteers, male volunteers, to work with victims. I don't know if they're kids, and they might be kids, to like read a book for them, to have a male, gentle male role
And
model.
we've had
And I'm
other men
pretty
before.
sure-
It's just currently
Just
we
as
only have
currently.
one.
which
Yeah,
is
but I
really
just wonder.
important.
And I don't think that's the
Yeah.
fault of any
You know what I-
service. I think
you
it's
know
just
what it is?
less men
It's
apply.
probably
That's what I
salary.
think. You know, probably
Oh,
in
yeah.
general.
Money.
Bet you. It's
Less
probably
men
a
apply.
Yeah, it's
salary
probably
issue.
money.
It's
Maybe
probably a
maybe
salary
they want,
issue.
Or-
maybe they feel like there's not enough money for them,
Right.
to
Right.
But that is pivotal because I know
Yeah.
for me, I don't know if it was for you, but obviously your anxiety level, not even your anxiety, your trauma level is so elevated for so long. I wasn't comfortable. Even yesterday, I was waiting in line for a cup of coffee, and once there was maybe 6, 7 people behind me, I had to leave. Like I got anxiety, I had to get out.
I agree with you.
So
I was
did you
telling
have
Irene
yeah.
about that.
But,
with me.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
ask. You guys
agree.
feel like you got like more anxiety after this incident?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it caused anxiety.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
I was not an anxious person.
I think.
start and-
Yeah.
I think any kind of trauma could cause anxiety. I even started getting
Definitely.
anxiety, from the
Like
event.
I've left my groceries in the grocery store so many times because I don't like people behind me, which doesn't make sense.
Right.
Which is the whole part of complex
Oh
trauma. Because I wasn't attacked by a stranger, I was attacked by somebody I knew, but I still don't like.
Well, you don't
People-
currently know where he is.
I don't-
so
Yeah.
he could be
yeah.
behind
And
you.
everything gets
Yeah.
really loud to
Right.
me, like in a
Hypersensitivity.
Yeah, really loud.
The
really
PTSD
bright.
type symptoms.
Yeah, the
Right.
hypervigilance.
Yes.
So
That
like with
the-
that, I think it's
the-
really important because I know like meeting gentle, like the first gentle male figure I met was like, it's a real special person to me because I'm like, oh, there's a gentleness in it and it stood out to me.
Right.
Because my abuser, from which ironically is what attracted me to him, was this the lion, this majestic mane, this confidence.
He was
the king of the jungle.
alpha.
Yes, that
Women
alpha
are attracted
male.
to alpha males who are confident.
People are attracted
Yeah,
to
people,
alpha
yeah.
males.
People. But I
Um,
think, yeah,
but-
I agree with you.
So I think like those roles in domestic violence shelters are extremely important because you're terrified now. Of
yeah,
these, and you
everything
need to
is
learn to trust.
hypersensitive. I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but
Oh,
like,
that's
I don't
an
want
awful
my
feeling.
door shut. I'm always like, no, open the door, Hamin. Like even
Right.
now with these doors shut here, I'm a little bit
Right.
like, I don't like it. I feel enclosed.
Yeah,
you know,
things that
and
never bothered you before, and things that technically shouldn't bother you because, like you said, I was attacked by somebody I knew,
yeah.
and I was attacked in my home. So why am I afraid in a grocery store?
Well, and I think
or I do really strange things now. Like I park my car, facing the way out in case I have to leave my house fast. I can just drive right out instead of having to back it out. Or I drive around my neighborhood like twice because he's stalked my neighborhood. My kids would say he'd see, he had a specific place he'd park and stop, I
Things
have
like that.
nightmares. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
have
woke up
nightmares
twice
too.
and he'd be in my house.
Yeah, I have nightmares too.
Like-
I think for me, it was a lot of re-victimization because not only did the act happen, but now its incident was so significant that it was in the paper everywhere and it was in the media, and I think that I'm like I see people sometimes rolling their eyes or I felt like I was re-victimized, which I think is why a lot of people
Yeah.
don't want to report because they
Oh,
feel
yeah.
they're gonna think I did something wrong, or they're gonna think why, like we talked about, why did I pick that partner, or for a lot of times I still go to the gym in Kenosha most of the time.
Renee, Carrie Moore has a question for you. She said, when you met a good guy, were you scared to accept him or skeptical as you are not used to it?
Well, I think we shared a couple episodes ago, Hamin and I started dating, and I think we had to talk about that the other day where I said to you, if we're going to date, you have to be very sensitive to what I've been through, okay? And I think we have to tell women, you can date again, but you have to have a man who's very understanding.
Yeah, I was even surprised when, you text me and you said, before you come home from work, you yell up to me and let me know you're here.
That's what I said.
She's like, let me know because
So
I can
pepper
freak
spray
out.
you.
Or, yeah,
So I don't get the, pepper sprayers
I don't pepper spray you.
it's like,
because she don't want, I guess, somebody just walking in the house because of what
the
she's
one
been
time-
through. So she
because-
needs
yeah.
to know who it is and
Well, because a couple of times I
That
haven't
did scare
heard,
you a couple times, just
you know,
creeping up and be
yeah.
like, hey, you're like jumping out of your seat. I'm like, whoa.
Right?
It's hard,
really
yeah,
scary.
but it's real. I think women feel like this,
It's
men feel
really
like
scary.
this, and you know, I talked to him about it, and I think women should talk about whoever they date. And hey, you know, you're gonna have to be extra gentle and extra observant, and you're gonna have to help me get through this. Because maybe then it could
You know
be,
what?
you know,
But that's not as important as you need to learn your boundaries. You need to learn to identify what your boundaries are,
right.
and to enforce your boundaries.
But I feel like let me ask you this, Kathy, and I think Women's Resource might have an answer to this as well. I feel like I'm a lot harder on Hamin because of what I've been through.
Probably.
I'm like, nope, that's checked off. I'm not dealing with that. Nope, I'm not dealing with that. Nope, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah, that's
Like,
your
I'm just
boundaries
like,
now.
there is nothing
That's your boundary.
I'm gonna freaking deal with now.
That's okay.
And if you do it, I'm out.
That's fine.
You know, because and you know, he's getting the brunt of it because we're dating and I'm
Oh, you left the milk out? Nope, gotta go.
We're pepper spray you.
no, I didn't say that,
Just
but
kidding.
you know, there have been things where, you know, it's like not that he's an abuser
But
that I
here's-
know of, but I'm like, oh, are those signs?
I hope not.
That's what I know
Are those
of.
red flags?
This is
Because
really
like, you know, whoa.
And there's a lot of really important aspects of healing. And in the beginning, it's educating yourself on what the hell happened. Because a lot of times you don't even realize what happened
Yes.
to you.
Right.
So in that first phase is learning. You know, what happened? What is this? What is this cycle of abuse? You know, if it was narcissism, what is this? What is, oh, this is gaslighting? This is
Right,
what he was doing?
right.
Or this is, you know, this is what this choking was about.
Mm-hmm.
It was an act of control, an act of trying to kill me or whatever. Learning about
what I was
all
gonna
this.
ask.
And then you really have to come out of this learning phase and go into taking back control of your life.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have any control of your life. So you have to go, and it starts out, you know, it's very embarrassing to say and very humbling to say. Comes up to like, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna brush my teeth. Because that was hard for a long time to just get up. Because I swear, that broken period, as soon as you woke up, it was shaking and cold and
Yeah, oh, definitely.
death. It was like, you know, most people are happy to wake up. It was like you woke up and it was like death looking at you in the eye. So it was like, okay, making this concerted effort to wake up and brush your teeth. And then to feed yourself, to give yourself water. I can't tell you how many days I went and like realized like I haven't peed all day today because I didn't drink.
Because you didn't drink
today.
any water.
To
Yeah.
then I have to eat.
That's
To
real.
then I haven't even started to exercise.
Yeah, you're always
but-
saying, did you drink water? Did you
Yes.
drink water? Because I
like
don't.
just
I go,
taking care of yourself, and then, you know, implementing, you know, just basic self-care. But then your focus really needs to have to turn away from your abuser. And that's hard. And this is where a lot of people get stuck, and it's natural to feel a little bit of anger, even a little bit of rage. In fact, that's one part that victims don't do enough. Like, they can't feel like this hate and rage for their victim, but you got to go through that. So you have to go. That's the mistake we make, right?
Yeah.
It's a mistake we make. Why we stayed so long is, but I love him.
Yeah.
But he's such a good person inside. But if I love him enough, I'm gonna change him.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you both,
No.
Yeah.
You are not gonna change this person.
Right. Is it, I think we talked about this too before the show. Denise, what do you think? Is it possible for the abuser to change?
Anybody can change, but that's
I'm out of here.
like we said before, though. That's not our focus.
That's not your focus. It's more on you
you.
need the
So we
person
don't
who's walking in the door. So
worry
you don't
about that.
focus on
Yes,
that.
you gotta change your focus.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
We don't-
The outcome.
And
They
no
can.
more.
And as far
We don't
as the choking and the strangulation, most of the people that come to Women's Resource Center, would you say a lot of them are strangled or choked? I've been like looking at a lot of people, you know, that are a victim. A lot of them are strangled. So why is it the choking?
Yeah,
and
what
the,
is up with
what is
the
up with
man
the choking
and wanting
the
to strangle the
strangling thing?
woman?
Is it like a power thing? Do you guys?
Yeah.
Is it because the
Is it
neck
like the
is
power?
just, such
Your
a
airway
voluble?
Going for
You
the
know-
throat silences. Okay,
Silences.
silences you. And I'm sorry, I don't say I'm not saying that everybody's in. That's just my expertise, my experience. They hate exposure. They want to silence you. If you're going to expose their truth, they want to silence you.
Correct.
Choking in general is an act of killing you. It's almost imitating killing you.
You said you're 10 times more likely to die from a homicide if you're choked, right?
Yes. So if in an assessment in a mosaic, I think the tool is called the mosaic thread tool, or I don't know what the term is, but you can go to mosaic. Oh my gosh, I hate when I don't. Mosaicmethod.com. The choking, well, if choking was part of that, it increases your risk for homicide 10 times.
10 times more.
10 times more.
Than if you were hit in the face or hit in the arm or slapped.
If they were controlling of your everyday actions, increases your risk of homicide by 40%.
Okay.
If your intuition, if that person something about them just made your hair on your neck stand up, 44%. I have a friend that she's a gut intelligent teacher. She teaches you to listen. That is the biggest thing manipulators will do. Turn off your inner voice.
You guys, we are over an hour into this.
I saw some stuff I want to ask.
Okay, well,
for
I
women's
want to
research.
take a moment to just, for any of the viewers, if they have a question for the Women's Resource Center, because we really didn't open this up to any questions yet for the viewers. So you guys, this will be the time to ask any questions you have for the Women's Resource Center, or if you have a question for Kathy about, a narcissist or her specialty, let them know now so that we can get those questions out of the way. So I'll be watching for any questions you guys have.
I have a question
before we wrap it up.
for the Women's Resource Center before we wrap up. A couple questions. I have a couple actually. One is when someone shows up and they've been a victim of abuse, what typically happens? Like what goes on? Tell me a little bit about what happens at the Women's Resource Center. A lot of people are scared. They're like, I don't want to walk in there. What's going to happen? Is there going to be usually one or a couple people on? Are they going to be taken to a room? Are they going to be asked questions? What typically happens?
Well, it depends if they call first or if they just show up.
Okay.
We do a screening to find out their story to make sure that they are, fit for, coming into shelter. We obviously find out whether or not they're actually requesting shelter or are they just looking for resources.
Okay. So some people will just come looking for extra help, but don't necessarily want to live there.
Correct.
Okay.
Then once we do the screening, they come in, we sit down with them one-on-one, or if there's multiple, advocates or people in there, then we sit down with them, we do paperwork, give them whatever, necessities they may need at the time.
And Women's Resource Center is a nonprofit organization. And direct donations can be made either monetary or also with drop-offs, correct?
Yes.
So that was really great for me, for me to hear. And how long has Women's Resource Center been around in Racine?
40 plus years.
40 plus years?
Yes.
Who started Women's Resource Center?
Well, Dominican sisters.
The sisters?
Yeah.
Like of the Ascension Association?
I
Or
believe
no?
so.
Okay, so they started it, and then it just kept going on with donations for over 40 years?
Predominantly grants.
Grants, okay. So and there's more grants that your employees can write to get money for?
Hopefully.
That's great.
We're always looking for more grants, yes.
Okay.
And writing to see if we qualify or can be awarded them.
And even to get the hands-to-hand program back even.
That'd be great.
That would be great, right?
Yes.
That was an excellent resource for the community that's now not available because of funding, correct?
Yes, but another nonprofit I'm not sure if they're a nonprofit. Another organization here in Racine is doing supervised visitation, and that's Family Services of Racine.
Okay.
So they will, I think they've already started just recently.
That's great.
Renee, Carrie Moore, she wants to know, where can people volunteer to help the victims? Is there a volunteer program you guys have? How can people volunteer?
We do. have volunteers.
Excuse me.
It's a little tricky because they need as much training. If they were going to actually work with any of our victims, they'd need as much training as we would provide to staff. So there's a lot of volunteer opportunities that are not working directly with victims that are more feasible for the average person to be able to come in and do.
Okay.
So they have to contact the Women's Resource Center for
Yes,
some
please.
kind of, okay.
Okay, so they could, you can look into volunteering too for Women's Resource. And it sounds like even if someone doesn't have a huge time commitment, even if they're able to maybe even help with a group or papers or anything like that, that would help.
Cutting the
Yeah,
grass.
as much as
you
cutting,
know.
the grass cutting even,
Stuff
because,
like that.
well, yeah,
too.
I mean that kind of, all that stuff will help. And I think, hopefully we're getting to a point where our communities will continue to start working together. I also want to share the Domestic Violence National Hotline, Domestic Violence National Hotline. You can get help today, the victims and survivors. Now, what was interesting is when I went to the Domestic Violence website, which everyone in this room probably knows, it had a alert that came up about, is your computer being monitored?
Yes.
Because if somebody knows how to look through your computer, they know, oh, hey, my wife or my husband has been looking at this domestic violence national page today. So it has like an alert, like make sure your computer isn't monitored and stuff like that. I thought that was really interesting when I actually went to the website. But for victims and survivors, you can go call 1-800-799-7233. Again, that's 1-800-799-7233. They are also, like Women's Resource Center, open 24/7, 365 days of the year. It's a confidential resource site for domestic violence victims. It gives you information. It gives you opportunities to donate. It gives you resources in your communities. And it will help you learn if the patterns of the behavior that you're going through are domestic violence and how to get out. And is there any additional resources that anyone here knows that would help our community or surrounding communities? And is there any words of advice we can give to people that are watching today to get out of the domestic abuse situations before they end up dead? I mean, we had right in Racine, we had a murder-suicide earlier this year. And from what I understand, from what I read in the paper, this particular victim contacted law enforcement and other people for help, and they were told, "Hey, there's nothing really we can do for you unless you're killed," and she was killed. Yes. So it's like we have to be more compassionate and look for warning signs, I think, ahead of time, so more of us don't die at the victims of hands of domestic abusers. Is there any other, is there anything that you guys can think of that you would really want people to know, either about Women's Resource or about being a victim of crime?
More for the support system of someone who's a victim, support them. Non-judgmentally, support them. They might not leave, but they still need to know that someone cares.
Yes.
It gives them eventually, hopefully, the confidence to be able to leave. Support them. If you're the parent and your daughter's, putting up with this relationship, it's you leave, no ultimatums. Just, keep listening, keep telling me about it. You're okay.
Don't say, "Hey, what have you done to deserve this?" or "What are you doing?"
And it's a lot of if you're going to continue to
they do that. They do that.
Oh,
It's a lot of if you're going to continue to be in these kind of relationships, don't keep coming and crying to me about it.
Yeah. Oh, right. Just be supportive.
Just be supportive, non-judgmental, and continue to be supportive. It will better enable them to be able to leave at some point.
Right, because if they know, hey, I have a family or a friend that's been listening to me the last 5 times, maybe that 6th time I'll leave.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And what about you? Do you have any suggestions about, that the community would need to know, or any, words that they would need to know to try to get out of these relationships?
I guess my only thing would be to just call. Even if you just need to talk to somebody, just call. There's somebody there 24 hours a day, even at both locations.
24 hours a day. So we have this service available 24 hours a day, and
At 2 locations.
At 2 different locations.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no reason why at least someone can't. Well, unless someone hides their phone. Like my ex used to hide my phone and my internet and take my cell phone for hours at a time. So I had no access to leave the house, and I had no phone. So, but hopefully, you know, if they are at a point where they can still make calls, that they can call the women's resource, maybe in a private area, or even, I don't even know if there's payphones available now, but in some
I
way.
saw one recently.
You did?
And it was like operational, and I'm like, oh.
That's cool. I don't even know. Yeah, I didn't even know. Well, thank you both from
you.
Women's
Thank
Resource
you.
Center for being here, and we really appreciate the services that you provide the Racine community. Kathy, do you have anything else you want to say to the communities, surrounding communities? Anything else that you've learned as being a victim of domestic violence, or in your book or in your research that could help someone today, other than what you've already said? Anything else we would need to know?
I think like it's very important to find an advocate or a counselor or a friend that speaks the same language.
Mm-hmm.
Like speak to someone who's been through it, and speak to someone who has survived it. I think is like the best person for you to speak to.
Yeah, because it is hard sometimes. I find it hard sometimes if someone hasn't been a victim, for them to relate to what I've been through. They're like, well, just move on.
Right.
Just forget about it. Just keep going. Snap out of it.
We tell a lot of our new residents and clients, none of us work here if we haven't already had some story that's gotten us here ourselves.
Right.
But the nice thing is, hopefully everybody's gone through their healing process, because you're not any help unless you've gone through your own healing process.
Right. Like, I'm just getting to a point 2 years later where I'm like, I can help people now, and I can not be as scared. I'm in a position where I'm like, oh, if he comes back now, that isn't going to happen.
But if you're working in the field, it's really easy to be triggered.
Yes.
The next person who's coming in and telling you their story,
Right.
I can handle 100 stories over and over and over, and have a lot of sympathy and a pretty, cut and dry. And then that next person, it's like, oh, thank goodness I have coworkers.
You're right, because sometimes I have patients that say they've been strangled, and it does trigger, obviously, like, you're like, okay, I may need to pass that one on to a coworker, because that is going to trigger me. I may or may not be able to help that patient. And what about you, Hamin? Is there anything that you learned within your research with abuse that that you'd like to end with?
Just in closing, I just want to say, if you guys, men or women, if you think you have any signs within that partner of any kind of something that doesn't feel right, go with your intuition, and do not ignore the signs, the red flags, as they say. Do not ignore that. And even sometimes your closest friends and family can notice some things that you may not, and even children. And children have a very strong intuition as well.
Right.
So if children or your friends or family are trying to tell you something about someone, do not get mad at them or ignore that. Take that, in and watch out.
Yeah.
Just read the signs and try to avoid this from happening.
Right.
And just get out immediately. Do not give any second chances. Most of the time these kind of people do not change. Just get out of this situation and move on before it gets even worse.
Yeah, because the fact is that we saw, just in closing, this is a huge, huge number. 738 people died in Wisconsin after being a victim of domestic violence in the last 7 years. That's over 100 per year in just Wisconsin.
And even if you don't die, you and I know it's completely life-changing.
It's life-changing, absolutely.
It's completely life-changing.
Absolutely.
Although, like, for me, I wouldn't trade it in, because it's really brought me close to God, and I found God walking with me on the whole journey. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Correct,
so
yeah, definitely.
I didn't die, but I don't
Well,
wish
we
it
can
on
maybe help
anybody,
people
so.
with our stories because of what's happened to us. So,
Right.
thank you everyone, for coming. We appreciate everyone for being
Thank
here
you.
and taking the time, especially it's your birthday today.
Happy birthday to
It's
you.
Tracy's birthday today. So, do you
25
want to tell
years
us,
old.
how old are you? Do you want to tell us?
49.
Woo! That's good. You look great. You look
Thank you.
49 years
fabulous.
younger.
And she took time out of her birthday to be with us today. And we ended up taking a lot longer than she initially planned for. So we double, triple appreciate you.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much. So thank you everyone for joining us today for Raw Topic.
Thank you guys, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you guys have not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe And hit that alert bell, you guys, so that you will not miss another upload or episode. And go ahead and follow us on Facebook as well, facebook.com/rawtopic. And remember, you guys, as always, if you can't come real,
You can always come raw.
Raw Topic. Peace.